on syllabus design, language through literature, and material design. The articles have been published in peer-reviewed national and international journals. Her current research interests include curriculum design, teaching and learning methods, corporate communication, and business communication. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Shubhashri.
Yes, ma'am. So I request you to you, ma'am.
Yeah, fine. So, am I audible, Harishri? Is my slide okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine, fine. Good morning, participants. I'll be handling a session on empowering teachers in 21st century skills education. Basically, I would like to start with a question on what is a skill, right? This kind of online methodology of teaching or lecturing or handling a session for participants is having advantage and disadvantage actually. We cannot ask questions. We can, if at all we ask questions, we need to wait for the answers in the chat box, right? And here I have a problem with WebEx where I'm not able to see the chat box immediately. Okay, so I'll take up the questions at last. I am able to connect it and I am able to see the slides and video, audio alone is working. Okay, we'll manage with that, no issues. So I asked a question like, what is a skill, right? So it is an ability to do something. So that is a basic, elementary, fundamental definition perhaps, right? So may it be a skill of cycling or swimming or cooking or teaching for that matter or learning, all are pertaining to skills. Okay, so when we are starting to learn to cycling, for example, we start off with pedaling first of all, and then perhaps it is a tremendous achievement when we excuse me, can you mute him actually? Okay, I request the participants to keep themselves in mute so that I can present well. Already there are certain constraints in telecast, so please cooperate. I was talking about cycling, right? So when we pedal first of all, and then perhaps it will be a kind of great achievement when we start to sit in the seater provided in our cycle. In that age, perhaps that will be the greatest achievement. Then perhaps we start cycling without leaving the hands from our handbar, and it's a kind of a great thrilling experience. We had it in our adolescent age. Similarly for swimming and other things. So if you closely watch these skills, right, it is a kind of step-by-step process. It will have a chronology in itself. Okay, anybody cannot directly sit in the seater and then go ahead with cycling, or it is not that one fine morning somebody gets up and say that I can swim well or I can cycle well, right? So it is a kind of step-by-step sequential process. So we'll see what kind of requisite this 21st century skills have and what are the components of it, what are the needs and scope of it in our slides today. Okay. So you can see here what are 21st century skills. Certainly you can see how this kind of a skill is expected of in a engineering student or perhaps even in arts and science students today, because campus interviews are conducted even in arts and science colleges these days. One of my friend's daughter is placed with her BCA degree, right, in Infosys. So it is not that only engineering students are placed in IT companies. So what is expected of these students who are graduated? Okay, they are expected to be having their proper grounding in 21st century skills. What is that actually? So he or she is expected to interact with his or in her environment as independently as possible, to become a contributing member of the society, to develop in the student a sense of dignity and worthiness, to solve problem appropriately and responsibly in real life situations, to manage his or her personal affairs. It can be a small issue of solving a constraint in his or her workplace, or it can be a major issue of tackling a challenge with the society. Okay, so in this information age, what are the set of abilities required? We'll see here. You can see the I'm just okay. So this 21st century skills classification encompasses learning skills, life skills, literacy skills. Okay, and in the learning skills, it comprises 4 C's, I can say, that is critical thinking, creative thinking, collaborating, and communicating. And for life skills, you have the flexibility skills, taking an initiative to do a project work or do any kind of progress in their career-oriented skills, social skills, productivity, and leadership skills. So anything is judged these days based on their outcome. So there lies the productivity of an individual or an incumbent in a campus interview. Next comes the literacy skills, where you have 3 literacy skills: information literacy, media literacy, and technology literacy. So we'll see in elaboration what are these skills and what is the requirement in this globalized information era for to acquire this 21st century skills. Here I have a classification of 2 different, I can say even tenets, or you can say concepts, where teachers as well as students should know the clear demarcation between knowledge and skills. Okay, there is always a misconception between knowledge and skill, because knowledge is certainly compartmentalized with competence, right? And it cannot be confused with skills. Okay, I can say communication skills. When I want to say I am proficient in 2 or 3 languages, I must, it is pertaining to knowledge, right? Certainly it cannot be a skill. So here in the left hand side column on knowledge, you can see what are listed: English language, reading comprehension, writing, mathematical ability, science, government oriented content, all legal papers on legal issues, anything, any sort of government governing body, statutory, right, economics, humanities, foreign languages, historical details, geographical details, all that are, if you possess all these details, it is some competence you have. That is totally different from a critical thinking or problem solving ability one has. Okay, so here knowledge has to be learned, and sometimes it can be even acquired, but skills can never be learned or taught. I cannot say from tomorrow onwards I'll teach you problem solving or critical thinking. All the tenets can be given to you. You can perhaps listen to it. You will have to acquire on your own. Okay, so it can be a collaboration skill. You can see and acquire. You can listen and acquire. Sometimes it can be a kind of just speaking verbatim. Then your idea sparks in your mind, and then you get it into your team. Okay, so it is a kind of application. You just have to come from this competence. Okay, knowledge is the repertoire which you have it in your cognitive repository, whereas skills is going to be the application mechanism that is you are going to execute. Okay, so here this you can see leadership skills, self-direction skills, lifelong learning. I have said because as far as teachers are concerned, I think we cannot say that I have completed my learning here. You cannot draw a line. Okay, lifelong learning has to happen to be a you will have to prove your expertise then and there with specializations. Otherwise, you will not be updated at all, right? And you should have to have some work ethic too. And all these listed skills in the right hand side column are pertaining to skills, and I think more or less all of them are related to these 21st century skills. We'll have it in detail. I'm just making a clear demarcation between knowledge and skills so that there is no misconception. Next, here you can say how our working nature has changed from 20th century to 21st century. You can see how 20th century jobs were from top-down hierarchies, right? Now we are in 21st century where we work for nimble organizations. Transparent communications happen there. What do you mean by nimbleness here? It is the ability of an organization to consistently succeed in unpredictable contested environments, right? So everything is undergoing a change. You cannot predict. For example, you never expected a pandemic like this, and people are going to work from their homes. Even schools are going to be not there, and we are going to administer all our classes through online. Nobody thought of it, right? So anything is not like perfect and it is compartmentalized. Anything is susceptible to change in this 21st century. So, and we need to be transparent. We cannot be doing it in a silo mentality. Third point, I have said silo and function based, which means like in yesteryears when our fathers worked in our workplaces, I think everything was confidential. They'll say it is concealed and it is like compartmentalized in silos. Whereas now everything is project based. People need to be transparent in letting out their annual reports. Right? In this competitive world, if you say that I'm going to conceal the information, you will not be in the competition at all. You'll be somewhere hidden. Okay. Whatever publication, you need to publicize your research. You need to be very, very transparent in your communications. And in the 19th century and 20th century, there was a command and control in the organizations. Now it is purely based on the trust. If you are not trusted, you will not be in the competition. You will not be allocated project works. You will not be given research coordination works. Right? And you can see in the last but one point I have mentioned, from work-life balance, it has shifted to life work. What is this life work actually? It is actually a beautiful integration of both work and life. Right? For example, in our fathers and grandfathers' days, they had a perfect timing of they go to the office at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock and return by 5 p.m. Right? And they have a if at all they had mobiles or telephones or whatever works, they will if it is work related, they'll put it off. Can we do it these days? Can I say that I'll switch off my mobile phone and I am going to be there for my family alone from 5 p.m.? Can I clearly demarcate like that? Can a workshop like this be organized if I'm saying that I'm not going to handle my calls, official calls after 7 p.m.? It is not possible. Sometimes, hello, is somebody conversing with me? Okay, fine. So life work here, we are integrating our work and life with a proper balancing. It is not actually even balancing. It is like we are setting boundaries perfectly, right? In my next slide, perhaps you can see how there is how this work life is changing into life working. In 20th century, there was scarcity of jobs, right? Now there is abundance of jobs, right? But then you need to cater yourself for that. You can do part-time jobs, even you can do 2 part-time jobs if you are prioritizing and schematizing it properly. Okay, and you can see how the mental model of balancing is working here. It is like integrating your work and life, career-oriented skills and your personal skills can be integrated here. So, for example, I can say like if you need to pay your electricity bill online amidst your workplace, you can do that. You cannot say that no, that is my personal work. I'll do it only at home. If it is the last date, you will have to do it. Similarly, if you need to attend parent-teachers meeting, you can ask permission from your higher authority and you can go ahead with your work. Right? It is not like 10 o'clock in the morning and 5 p.m. and it is work related, and you have not such compartments now, and you cannot afford to do that. Okay, and it was I'm going to the earlier slide. It was one career for our fathers, right? It was like 30 years they had been in one company all along. Now these days, especially in IT companies, I think the first 10 years they'll be there in one particular company, and if they for advancement and career advancement and growth pursuits, I think they are switching over to the next company, and nothing wrong in that. We need to admit all those changes. Okay. I have come to another slide of how this transformation happens. 20th century, from 20th century workplace, we have moved to 21st century, and I have also listed the benefits of it. Okay, there was a great information overload in the 20th century, and now it is perfectly organized. Even I think our Gmails are categorically schematized, right? It is having a perfect column of primary, social, update, promotions, etc., etc. So nothing is like it has been overloaded, right? If you are having the time and appropriately, if you are allocating it, I think you can have a perfectly organized knowledge of whatever content you have, and the productivity has certainly increased because of not overloading, right? If here even you can see how personalized our learning has happened. You can sit with your laptop and you can have your own competence enriched with your particular tool, instrument, right? And you can be proactive with that. It is based on your interest and enthusiasm you have towards a particular activity. And this half learning of cost and time, I think everything today's world is based on this kind of half learning, which means that you are investing your cost and time for it. If you are going to revise a paper, read a paper, how much time are going to allocate? right? No, nobody is going to say that you have counted 120 errors. No, how much time have you allocated for it? For a presentation of 1.5 hours, or how much I must prepare, how much I must allocate, right? And what kind of slides? So everything is based on the cost and time in this 21st century. So you can see how from the workforce administration we have moved towards a word called empowerment. Even certain powers which are underutilized, now they are getting empowered. Okay, so the true potential is unlocked here as a benefit. Similarly, from complex workplace, we are now moving into lean and connected workplace, right? Here efficiency is taken into account, right? And here you can see the customer delight. Okay, customer delight, if you are giving a surprise to the customers, and everything is service oriented. Okay, so if customers are to be made happy and if they are emotionally satisfied, I think they'll give by word of mouth, this product is good. So you can see the kind of disintegrated working to a converged, simplified working mechanism. So I think there is a good transformation happening, but there is always a kind of competition there, right? We must also accept that, right? But if you are not going to be in that competition, I think we must not take part at all. Right? If we decide to take part in the competition, then perhaps we will have to go ahead with all the requisite skills we need to possess. So now I have said how this need for 21st century skills. I have just given a mapping here. We will see what specific skills are required. So here you can see how learning can be a kind of ontogenetic adaptation. What is ontogenetic here? I do not know whether I can see the chat box. Okay, I'll answer, no problem. Ontogenetic development can be conceptualized like this. Like it is a kind of physical, cognitive, emotional and social development that can be distributed to experiences in the environment. Okay, and individuals even within the environment. So how do you adapt yourself for this social behavior? That is called as learning to do or learning to be. I'll be talking about the 4 pillars of learning in my future slides. So that kind of adaptation has to happen in an individual. Okay, so and what is the need and requirement for it? I have already said there is a mismatch in the education system, which means there is a gap between what they need to know and what they should be able to do in a workplace. That's an ongoing issue, right? Always the employers are saying that they are not skillful or adept in doing certain workplace requirements. So this concern of employers, I think that can be made possible within the curriculum if it is integrated properly. Okay, how it can be done, we'll see that. So one thing which we need to understand here is learning is basically a fundamental social activity, and every 21st century learner should possess it. It is a right or prerogative of a learner to have such adaptation. It is not a total syllabus which is not in our thing that we are going to introduce new, right? Already it has been there. Thing is, you will have to have that array of skill set introduced properly with the proper integration. You will have to do it. That's all. Okay, next is, you can see how employers and students have rated on the preparedness of placing themselves in campus interviews. Most of them, right, they have said that most of the students, for example, they have said they are very good in team building, decision making, they are very techno savvy. They need to locate, organize and evaluate information. They are very good in numerical skills, oral and written skills, very good in analytical thinking, being innovative, analyzing, problem solving. For all the skills listed, they have, you can see the brown color bar which is raised high saying that we are competent in that particular skill. Whereas the employers are saying no. Okay, you can see the low score allocated by the employers. So this is the kind of mismatch scenario existing between the recruiters as well as the students or teachers. Perhaps teachers sometimes may support for this, or sometimes they'll say that the employer's expectation is too high. Somehow, if everything is integrated in the syllabus and if it is made implemented alone, teachers can do something about it. Otherwise, they can also do. They cannot contribute anything for this issue. Okay, here the demand for skill set. You can see how the expectation of corporate today is. I remember a student in my way back 10 years back, I think, right? So he said he was not able to retrieve the subjects he has studied while there was a question on what are the subjects you studied in your earlier semesters, there was a question. Maybe in here, first and second semesters, he didn't remember the subject or the teacher. So what is taught is not made very clear, or perhaps they are not able to retrieve. They are not able to create that impact in him. So that is a very sad picture actually. So here the corporate's expectation is how quickly the incumbent is able to retrieve any information in a given situation, right? So he's with the kind of competence he has, he is tested on his application skills. So there is a need to make our students to think on their own. Always it is like a examination oriented thing they are equipped with. So it's a memory based content, right? So they are used to that rote learning. They will prepare, produce, and our questioning methodology is also like that. I'll talk about that later, perhaps. Next is, you can see the list of life skills I have listed here. I have termed it as seed skills. One for the social and emotional competence part of it. E, the creativity, innovation, and enterprising part of it. The another E is on emotional resilience, and D for discipline. You can see here, this integrated skill set is a kind of holistic development in learners that is expected actually. Okay, so especially this third letter E of emotional resilience, how you are able to get to your position with, even though if you are affected with setbacks. Okay. Next is the theoretical insights. So I'd like to have some brief insights or implications on the theory behind it. So WHO in 1997 itself has talked about this as generic employability skills. And they say that this kind of adaptive positive behavior that enable individuals will definitely make them deal effectively with the demands and challenges of 21st century. Next is UNESCO has termed life skills as 21st century skills. In all my slides, I would have used this word of life skills, 21st century skills, employability skills, generic skills. These are interchangeable, I think. Okay. So you need not be getting confused when you see my words interchanged here and there. So UNESCO has termed it as 21st century skills. The author Martha Nussbaum, the researcher, right? She was the one who proposed these 4 pillars of education, right? She has done it in 1997, and all these 21st century skills in UK and US are already, they have done with it. Okay. In India, it is slowly emerging. Okay. And we are yet in schools, in other brochures, you can see we are implementing 21st century skills. You can see that line, but they never do it. Okay. In curriculum or implementation, as far as I and my researchers have perused it, we have never seen the curriculum implemented. It is only in the word or verbatim stage, actually. So Amartya Sen has acknowledged these 4 pillars as capability approach theory. And we'll see more about the concept of Amartya Sen and well-being in my another lecture on the final day. Now these categories of life skills. Okay, here in this thinking skills, you have the categories of self-awareness, decision-making, problem-solving, critical thinking. And when I say self-awareness, that is a basic fundamental necessity for a learner or an incumbent or a candidate in this 21st century era, because unless and until you understand what you need to know, right, and what are you capable of, right, you cannot go for the next step of decision-making or problem-solving or critical thinking. So I think students must be made aware of what they are capable of. Next is the social skills, where you start off with the effective communication, then perhaps interpersonal relationship, negotiation, because all corporate relationship, unless and until you have proper negotiation skills, you cannot get your project sanctioned. And for that, you need to possess the self-assertiveness and resilience skill, and you cannot otherwise survive. Last, certainly not the least, the emotional skills is how you cope with emotions and deal with stress. Okay. These are the 4 pillars of learning that Martha Nussbaum has mentioned. You can see the 4 pillars: learning to know, learning to be, learning to live together, and learning to do. So these are the 4 wings that is very much necessary. For the benefit of the participants, I am just having the definition listed on here. Okay. If you are going to be a graduate in education, I think you will know all these concepts. Learning to know, right? That is actually developing the reasoning ability in learners. Okay. So making them understand the use of knowledge. First of all, they must be self-aware, I have already said. So if they are aware of it and they are made to understand their content, competence, then perhaps they'll be able to go ahead with their critical thinking, problem solving, decision making skills. Okay, next one is learning to be, where you can see the functioning and capabilities of an individual. It is totally concerned with the concept of agency. The outcome will be self-awareness, self-confidence, self-esteem. You can build an identity on your own. You can value yourself and set your goals. So all these are going to be the related abilities or the outcome. Okay. Third one is learning to live together. This is a very important skill which one individual must possess these days, because our children these days are brought up as pampered childs, and they are not allowed to take risk in their life. So such a kind of parenting background they have, and I think we need to put them in occasions where they are affiliated to a group, a category, a society, and a culture, and we must, so that they can understand and respect others' differences. Okay, it's a kind of interpersonal abilities they need to acquire, so that they can go ahead well with communication, negotiation, and sometimes even refusal life skills. Most of the time, sometimes we are not able to say no for our allocated works. It happens even now for me, right? It can be to the head of the department or to my higher authority, where I am not able to say no for a particular activity, because you are tuned to say yes whenever it is from the top-down hierarchy. So we must make our students to, whenever there is a necessity to say that, you will have to accordingly be a social being. And this kind of building potential, if you are having, then perhaps Amartya Sen says that you can turn the students into social capital, that is social assets, right? If they are going to possess that learning to live together or interpersonal ability or the social skill, human being activity, if they are going to possess in themselves, they can become good social assets in their society. Next, the last one is going to be the learning to do, where they are going to master the patterns of behavior which they are going to act. Okay, so I have already said there is a mismatch in the theoretical content and the practical know-how of it. So if that is the case, so this practical application part of it is the outcome if you are going to perform well according to the patterns of behavior you have acquired. So the vision of 21st century skills is actually the 4 pillars of learning integrated with the 3 categories of life skills. I have given thinking skills, emotional skills, and other categories. So that is that if you are going to integrate with the 4 pillars of learning, I think you can have a ontogenetic adaptation, which I mentioned in my earlier slide, where you can refine your functionings and capabilities. And if you are able to make your student or a learner to be capable enough of his own skills, it can be psychomotor skills or his own technical skills for the day-to-day functioning, I think you can see a good vision of 21st century skills in the information era. I'll occasionally show some visuals so that it is not content alone. It is not a boring mechanism of content and content per se, right? So to make a change, I think I have included some visual slides for you to grab the content conveniently. So here you can see how students can be made responsible enough to do things well, right? So for that, the first requisite is they must feel capable. So how this capabilities can be enhanced through 21st century skills education? So certain individual talents, and you need to have the potential for that. The education must gear up in the sense that the curriculum syllabi is one part of it. The execution part of it, where teachers have to be trained in the 21st century skills tenets. The other one is testing and assessment part. So it is like a combo curve, right? It can be, I can say that it's a U-turn actually. Okay, so it's a perfect bell-shaped curve where I think if all the 3 tenets are put together, you can see how students are going to be skillful in that skills, 21st century skills. Okay, so this is a kind of psychosocial abilities which is expected in a learner to bridge the gap between the practical know-how and the ability to do things regularly. I think I have talked about the social capital, so I am just skipping certain content. Usually in my slides, you will have some 3 or 4 content, and I will be pinpointing on one particular point that is very much essential, so that we are on time with our, or we are in tandem with the time we need to do for this particular session. Okay. And you can see the need of the hour. Okay, so need of the hour here, I would like to highlight this second point on outcome-based higher education. Okay, so I think most of you would have heard this term. Any session on quality of higher education or your own engineering institutions would have stressed on this word, and you would be aware of even Bloom's taxonomy. I'll be showing it in the next slide. So I think we need to prepare our students to transfer their knowledge and skills to new situations, and we'll see what kind of transformation should happen. And here you can see how in the learning environment we must allow students to make sense of what they learn and process the content deeply so that they can apply their understanding to solve problems. It is not that everything can be like lectured. Sometimes we must make them do, right? Even in subjects like English, we are allocating project works these days, and they are assessed on all the skills, right? May it be listening, may it be speaking, may it be a comprehension skill, may it be a debate. Any skill becomes a unique, and they are tested and evaluated accordingly. So one student may be able to by heart well and reproduce the content, but it is not necessary for a subject like English. In other numerical skill these days, right? No, here sometimes even theorems are given in PPTs today. I have seen mathematics faculty having, they have been using slides to demonstrate the content, because in the yesteryears, you can see the maths teacher full of chalkboard and chalk piece and chalk powder in her hand, and she'll be writing from the top to the bottom of the board, right? These days, when there is a necessity of showing on slides, people use it here. Next is, you can see the Bloom's taxonomy, and I'm highlighting the revised Bloom's taxonomy. So it is nowhere between knowledge and evaluation these days. It is starting from remembering to creating. Everybody is towards the creative and innovation part of it, and there is a demarcation between the creative and innovative skills. I'll talk about that in my further slides. Okay, so here you can see how from the bottom line, like remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, it goes to the creating stage. So it is again a step-by-step process, right? When it is thinking, do not, you cannot underestimate your thinking skill. Okay, so from lower order higher thinking skills, you need to move on to the higher order thinking skills, and you cannot jump onto your creative skill, higher order thinking skills suddenly. Okay, so it has to be nurtured in you when this acquisition happens in an individual. So 21st century education's core function is you will have to learn to learn. That is learning to learn in preparation for a lifetime of change, which means I have already talked about the environment which we need to prepare our students. No longer it is going to be work-life balance. It is going to be life-working situation. So in that case, if you are going to, occasionally there is some interruptions. Okay, so you are helping students learning in not expanding their, when I'm saying that you need to make the students capable, it is not expanding their learning capacity. It is supporting their learning mechanism. Okay, how our families stand today with extended family support, right? Similarly, we need to give a supporting environment for our own students to nurture their intellectual, personal, social resources, okay, in a diverse and changing world. And I think this kind of ethical practices and how you need to manage projects effectively, set and meet time management, set and meet goals, right? Being accountable for a particular project, all this challenging skills, how we are executing, right? In my slides, one by one, I'll be demonstrating it. So you can see that. So we are enabling our young people to become successful learners, confident individuals with self-respect. All these abilities I have mentioned here, I'm not going to read out everything, right? So you can, I have put this on the screen because you can see for yourself how they can think creatively, and you are making them very independent by doing so. It is not that always your learner has to come and ask you the doubts. These days, everybody can Google for themselves and clarify their doubts. But where our role lies is you need to say them where to locate the information, how to organize it, how to call out, and how to evaluate sometimes. They must know what is necessary and what is not. It is not that you can cut and copy paste anything that is taken from the internet. So they have to cull out the right kind of information. For that, even I think teachers can give tips. Okay. Next is how they can make young people responsible citizens. They'll be always, it is not that other people are evaluating, the concerned individual or incumbent can also evaluate the material that is given to him, the time allocated to him, the market share that is before in this competitive world, whatever it may be, right? So that kind of analysis he must be adept of. So how he is going to be a contributing individual unless and until he is an enterprising, resilient, self-reliant person, I think he'll be out of the track. Okay, so it is lying in between the communication he has with his own peer group or sometimes with higher ups or with his subordinates. So how you are going to develop that and make it your innate skill, there lies the competence. Okay, and here I would like to talk about a book by Subrata Bashi, Who is a Professional? That is the title of the book. If you have time, you can read it or at least skim through the book. So it defines 3 qualities that is necessary in an 20th century individual these days, right? One is, who is a professional is, the first quality that is necessary for a person is he must work unsupervised, right? So we are all used to supervisions. And I know a school in Madurai where there is no invigilation duties allocated to the teachers. I would love to work in that particular environment because their students are habituated to not to copy, right? Whatever they know, they'll write. Okay, there is no invigilator there. And what is the necessity for copying? So that is perhaps inculcated in them. So I think what kind of work ethic can we tell to our student if such a mechanism is expected? So there, I think we teachers have to think. It is not that English teachers or professional ethics teachers or management teachers alone have to talk about this work ethics. It is not that way. Even a mathematics teacher, an engineering faculty also can make a mention of how to maintain the integrity. When I talk about integrity, I think I remember the 3rd quality that is requisite of a professional, that is you need to move beyond the competence and possess that integrity. It is the choice that you make between the right over the convenient, the right over the expedient. For example, if it is easy to pass in the examination by copying papers. Okay. And after the examination, when they are having the papers, maybe there will be the short time happiness will be there. When they are getting the degree, somebody will say, even his own friend will say, I know how you got this mark, how you got this degree. Okay, then he is totally off. He cannot be unmindful of that particular sentence. And after 5 years also, if he meets them in the shop, he will say, I know how you have passed your degree. Okay, that is a breaking word, right? One activity for all the 365 days is going to affect his work ethic. And the second quality that is expected of a professional is he must be able to certify the completion of his or her own work. Sometimes my research scholars say that I am not able to, I do not know whether I have completed this research paper. They are not able to put a full stop, right? So it is sometimes aiming at perfection, but sometimes you must know where to conclude, right? If it is a 1.5 hour session, then I can, how I can extend, at what time limit I am given, all that is specified. Because I have already said everything is between cost and time. So in this, how are you going to make your students professional? Okay, so Subrata Bashi has clearly explained these 3 qualities, which perhaps you can read for yourself, enjoy and make your students acquire, or at least you can read for the basic language part of it. Next one is Alvin Toffler, where he talks about the illiterate of the 21st century is not the people who cannot read and write. He says people who cannot learn, unlearn and relearn are the illiterates. So what is this unlearning? Sometimes when we need to think out of the box, this box full of conventions and traditions, I think there we'll have to unlearn it a little bit. If it is unnecessarily imposing conventional methodologies, destroying the modern thought, I think there you will have to unlearn it. And relearning, yes, sometimes we need to unlearn it and start reading it from the beginning so that you will have a new perspective. There a creative idea might crop in. Okay. So here the role of 21st century skills in classrooms, right? It is not that it must, all these 21st century skills must be developed in a highly technological classroom. No, it is not that way. Though it is having the requisite of a global interaction, I think with this day of internet age, I think you can make them blend all these adaptive, flexible qualities if you are instigating in them the creative, innovative capabilities and make them good thinkers in their profession. And you can see how the 4 C's enable it. Now, number 1 is communication, number 2 is critical thinking, number 3 is creativity, and 4th one is collaboration. So communication skills, I do not know whether I have told it, it can be both written and oral, right? It need not be the communication sent through written mode of communication. It can be the verbal oral mode also. And coming to the next one on critical thinking, the second C, it is not critical. When I use the word critical, it is not critiquing somebody, right? It is not that way. There is always a misconception in that. So here, in this critical thinking, it can work in 2 ways, right? This critical thinking, it is again categorized in another part called analytical thinking. Okay, though critical thinking itself is an analysis, right? It can happen based on his or her own value judgment, right? When I say value judgment, it can be based on their parenting, educational background, social background, economical background, etc., etc. Sorry. So, whereas analytical thinking, you can compare and contrast 2 budget, for example, the yesteryear budget and this year budget. If you're going to statistically compare it, evaluate in pure statistical terms, then that becomes an analytical thinking. So this can be sometimes coagulated and handled as a critical thinking concept also, right? So where you are going to have this problem solving and decision making skills, you solve problem and then that particular criteria can be prioritized and you can decide it also. So next, 3rd C comes for creativity, where you can see again a thin demarcation line between creativity and innovation. Creativity is the inspiration or the light bulb movement or the spark or an idea an individual gets, right? I can quote the example of Einstein, anybody for that matter, any scientist in your mind can come under that particular category. Whereas innovation here, all those creativity is again bypassed and you have your application mechanism of it. You have all types of model cars these days, and we are not depending on totally inventions alone. It is like it is not just downsizing. For example, it is not nano cars. It is not like a bigger car is totally downsized into it. No, it is not that way. You have to think of a 1 lakh cheap cars for it and how economically you can maintain the whole thing. So it is in all innovations. You can have small examples of that. For example, when computers were invented, when they were first invented for the first time, it was a huge computer, right? To a large space it was occupying. Now we have our laptops. That is an innovation part of it. So if not Einstein, Steve Jobs and other creative thinkers, we can make our students as innovators, right? You can see how they can apply a particular theory in their own, when there is a necessity for their own community, they must be able to apply it properly. And that becomes a beautiful innovation. It can be a small operation mechanism they do for their own household appliances. But how it is channelized and how it is brought forth for the application mechanism, there the innovation part of it should work. For that, perhaps even lateral thinking helps in that particular process. And the last C is collaboration. And these days, it is not only interdisciplinary, it is multidisciplinary that is expected of all engineering as well as humanities or any faculty for that matter. A small example I can give is all these workshops we conduct, we do it in an interdisciplinary mechanism. It is not that I speak only to my colleagues. And if I'm doing so, I think that I have a restricted, limited circle. Okay, so we have conducted with architecture department, we have conducted with other departments, so that it is a kind of learning happening within us, how not only with the networking and the audience part of it, it is also our vision is enlarging when we do this kind of interdisciplinary activities. We tried a project work with computer science department and computer applications. So sometimes it has a beautiful outcome, sometimes it stops with that small project. anyhow, it is not a tea shop conversation alone with inter departments, right? You can go ahead with good project works. And here I have listed this visual is especially for the 4 C's of communication, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. You can see how constructive it is going to be if you are going to have this diverse environments of communication, critical thinking, and creativity, and of course collaboration. So any goal is accomplished with this kind of learning to live together or working together mechanism. And creativity is like demonstrating. Sometimes it is even when I say that you need to be out of the box, right? There, some risk-taking mentality has to happen. Apart from being flexible and adaptable, I think individual or a student of 21st century is expected to be having the risk-taking, daring behavior. Otherwise, I think the chances of learning are curtailed for him or her. Next, I am moving on to the communication and collaboration. I am not going to highlight every part of the content here. Okay, I am just highlighting on the verbs here. You can see I have said articulate thoughts and ideas effectively, listen and decipher meaning. When I am uttering my second point, I would like to put an emphasis here because listening, I think that has become a totally negated skill these days. Right? Whenever I listen to people in telephone conversations, sometimes even my students they are very hasty in delivering what they want to convey to their higher authority or to their faculty members, to their peer groups. Sometimes the words or it goes astray. Okay, we need to have the pace and we need to have the patience to listen. Otherwise, we cannot convey things clearly. Okay, and then coming to the purposes of communication, where sometimes we need to inform, instruct, motivate, and persuade. I think accordingly you will have to use it. When there is going to be a international call, I think we need to accordingly listen and give our content. Similarly, sometimes if it is going to be diverse environments, we need to demonstrate our ability. It is not always that you are going to keep concealed. Whenever you can see many of your students behave that way, right? Whenever they are questioned alone, they'll open the mouth. They will not volunteer. Only 10 students in the class will always volunteer for all our answers. And the other sector, if you are going to give something challenging alone, they will start working. Otherwise, they'll be comfortable in their zones. Okay, so this kind of flexibility, willingness to go ahead with the compromises and accomplish the common goal, assume shared responsibility, all that is communication and collaboration skill expected. First, I think we must decipher it, inculcate in our minds. We must start implementing it, and perhaps with the kind of role model, our students will automatically follow it. Then comes the creativity and critical thinking. I have told a little bit on that, but I would like to add something on questioning here. Right? There is I will say, it's not for questioning sake. Okay, so it is a art of actually beautiful art which everybody can intelligibly acquire. Okay, so you must be open to new ideas, and perhaps you must allow your students to grill you with questions, right? So for that, one thing is you must be clear with your own concept. That's all. But we are not allowing our students to encourage, ask questions as they intend. Okay, and one thing that I'll also be talking about the Bloom's taxonomy, where the question papers we set, most of the times you can see the question papers with what is artificial intelligence, what is fuzzy logic, define this. Yes, you can have some what questions, you can have some define oriented questions, but rest of it can be allocated to even why, how, etc., etc. And we'll be talking elaborately on that questioning mechanism. But this questioning mentality is always there in all our children. In a small child, right? You can see 4 or 5 years child always pestering their parents, asking what is this, what is that, right? That questioning mentality is there. They'll lose it perhaps over the years. In their adolescence, they lose it and they become passive learners, right? We are not making them to open to ask questions, and you can see how it is made innate in all our students. Okay. When I'm dealing with that questioning slides, right, I'll be talking more on that. Next comes the critical thinking skills, where I have touched on that particular content on how it is not critiquing and it is based on analyzing problems. But again, this analyzing content can be on alternative points of view, right? We have an exercise called perspective writing itself. So a situation is given to students where they can take perspectives and they can start analyzing a particular situation, real life situation. So you can see multi-perspective dimension in that particular content on how to make decisions. Okay, so here the problem is teachers have to think before they assign a task, and whenever there is a do not say that only institutes like National Institute like NITs and IITs alone can perform this way. No, I have also worked in an engineering college for about 8 to 9 years, right? So where there is 20 mark assignment component or 10 mark assignment component, you can make the students think for themselves and allocate their own creativity. For example, it need not be a simple Control C and Control V assignment, right? You can make them be rational on a particular decision-making project. When, as I said earlier, even when humanities faculties are able to give mini project works for their own students, I think all other faculty members can automatically give application mechanisms. Okay, so after this comes the literacy skills, where media skills. Here I would like to say that even like institutes like engineering colleges as well as institutes of higher educations like NIT, IIT, there is a media cell these days, right? It is not that you can keep all your information concealed. Whatever you do, you need to market yourself, right? You must be talking about your unique selling points. So how you need to publicize whatever you have. At the same time, when some media offers you information also, you must be able to cull out only the right kind of information. You cannot take everything from there. And how it is sensitive to certain things, I think students are not fully aware of it. They are having a biased perspective there. The age matters and experience matters there. So I think you can have a say on that. Okay, which kind of material is sensitive and where they need to be intelligible in culling out the content. Information literacy, I have touched on this, but one thing is, it is not about just locating and organizing information. Sometimes you must be making them aware of how to evaluate the sources critically by analyzing it properly. Okay, you must be able to tell them how you need to be selecting a particular information based on the knowledge base, right? And how to effectively use it for a specific purpose. It can be any economic, legal, or social issues or whatever, right? So sometimes you need to be ethical in accordingly acknowledging it. For example, we ask our research scholars to use the proper references, right? Otherwise, it is all your papers are stuck in plagiarism. So how you can be ethically practicing it? You can quote somebody proper, right? So information is there, no doubt about it. But how you are going to utilize it, right? Apart from locating it. Next is the technological literacy. I think our students are more techno savvy than us, right? But then you can make them read some good blogs on online social media, right? So that they enrich their content on that particular on their own social world, right? So this 21st century learning initiatives, right? They embrace the collaborative participative learning mode. This web technology, I think, though they are skillful in it, you can offer your guidelines there so that they are on the right track. Okay, summative roles of 21st century skills. Right here also, I'm not going to deal with all the bulletins here. You can have the ing form of gerunds alone highlighted. So, yeah, individual, when he is prepared for a lifetime change of learning to learn, he can be made to analyze, synthesize, evaluate materials, solve problems, communicative tasks. He can be in the pursuit of knowledge. He can also collaborate with people. He can be professional in his ethical practice. and then he must be able to organize his digital content, and all this is about learning how to learn as a self-disciplined person. And here I'll be giving a difference or distinguishing slide on developing a learning classroom and managing a classroom. I think everybody will agree with me that you are not going to manage a classroom by reacting, and you are not going to have controlled mechanism in your classes. You are not going to always command and control them, right? Occasionally you can do that, but these days 21st century kids are more oppressive of it, right? So you can be relaxed, open, and self-controlled. All that is you will have to be proactive, not teacher-centered. You will have to be student-centered. You will be facilitating most of the time. You are expected to do open-ended questions most of the time rather than closed block questions. You are evaluated for if you are going to evaluate for their correctness alone, I think people will not respect you. So you will have to clarify and understand. Sometimes if there is a necessity of paraphrasing also, you will have to do it. And when it comes for developing creativity in novel presentations, it depends on what kind of questions you give them. Okay, and there I'll again come to that when I am talking about the learning environments. I'll be touching on that particular point of how you can do that with starting from question papers to allocating assignments. And cognitive engagement has to happen rather than covering the content. You will have to cover your syllabus. I am not saying no, but most of the time it must be uncovering it, which means you are going to move beyond the obvious domain and say some references so that all this is acquired by them. You are moving them towards a independent mechanism rather than always dependent on your content alone. Yeah. And why are learning environment important? Yes, certainly it is. Apart from the physical infrastructures, I think psychological learning environments are more important these days, right? Unless and until we are disseminating some positive vibes for our students, I think things will not work out in the fashion you are expecting. Okay, you cannot be commanding and control always. That will always give you a negative effect on you. So I think you can, when there is going to be a long absentee in your own classroom, I think you can ask what is wrong with that person. Sometimes there will be some true reasons of his father's death, or it can be any reason for that matter. One student of mine had that issue, right? He came at the fag end of the semester, and even there he was not concentrating properly. And when he was questioned, he said that he's not able to do it because he has lost track, and he was so friendly with his father, and he's not able to digest his death. So such things, I think, and unless and until we are a little bit empathetic, we will not be able to understand such situations. So you can be a great expert in your own field, but still, when it comes to classroom situations, you can come down to earth and attend such small constraints. And here you can see small story there, right? I'm not going to read the story. I'll just give it in a nutshell. So here, life is a process. You must not push its pace, because a caterpillar, in order to blossom into a butterfly, right? If you are going to, when it is struggling to come out of that cocoon, right? Can we open it for ourselves and make it comfortable? No, right? So it is going to totally affect the creativity. Okay? So it can blossom on its own. So 21st century skills has to be inculcated in them, instigated in them slowly, so that it is nurtured and acquired by them, and they blossom into an independent learner of 21st century. Okay, and for that there is a need for teachers to make them feel accepted. Okay, most of the time we don't do that. Somewhere we have that ego that we don't even recognize them, or we do not appreciate. It's not that people who get good marks alone they have to be appreciated, right? Sometimes when there is a unique skill of summarizing well, for a unique skill of taking an initiative, developing a small project work when he has submitted it properly, all these can be made a mention in the classroom, so that small recognition actually enriches the feeling, right? For example, I would not have come into teaching if my own MA teacher patted at my back and she told that you are going to become a beautiful teacher, right? You have the mechanism of explicating things in a clear manner, So I want you to become a teacher, she said. When I handled a seminar on a particular topic, she said that you have that innate skill. Then I thought, why not make a try? Otherwise, I would not have had the intention of coming into this profession. So somewhere, I think when something is said, it comes as a spark in you. So I think teachers can do a good role in their instigation. Here you can see Mother Teresa saying that the biggest disease is not leprosy, but rather the feeling of being unwanted. So for some reason, sometimes we have a inclination towards our students where we don't like a particular students for the outlook of it, for the dressing part of it. Sometimes for our 8:30 class students, just brush and they come and sit in our classes. I cannot hate the students for it, right? So it is part and parcel of their adolescent life. So you are going to accept them with their positives and negative and say what is good and bad for them. So accordingly, they acquire it. And how you can give authentic assignments and learning experience, I think that is going to be specific regarding to your subject. I can talk to English teachers or humanities, behavioral science people. I can give you a few tips, but then you teachers have to take responsibility. You have to take accountability of giving authentic assignments on your own. You must have that challenge in you to give open-ended questions. Okay, and try for yourself that you are not going to rely on yesterday question papers or question bank and that kind of concepts. In that, given that 20 marks or assignment components, you can conduct quizzes amidst your classroom students, or you can ask them to conduct, and you can be an evaluator or observer. Right? Anything is not dependent on paper. This online classroom and other thing is always indicating to us. 2 semesters we are correcting papers on online. I can never say that I want to take a printout of all the 60 to 90 papers. I can never say that. I have to correct it online. So such is the case of this pandemic outbreak. So you can expect the unexpected. Okay. So accordingly, you can go ahead with it. See here, I have given I was talking about Bloom's taxonomy. So here you can see how the questioning skills can be elevated to certain extent. It need not be always block questions of what or what is it. So you can go for how questions. If it is contextual based, you can go for how and who, right? If it is going to be definitions and clarifications, you can say, how do you define it? How do you go ahead with this particular idea? Why this concept has emerged? What would be a concrete example? You can ask them to substantiate or exemplify it. And similarly, going for the analyzers, you can say that what part of that makes a whole, how X has organized it, and how Y can do it in a better way. All these analyzing things, and further, you can see how the comparatives, causals, and evaluatives function. Comparative, I need not explicate it. You know that, right? So how this is compared to that, and you have few questions on that. Most of the question papers have a question like distinguish, right? So that is there, and you can have few questions so that what contributing cause will lead to this particular effect. Evaluative questions, again, what are the most important features that has affected the outcome of it? If you are asked them to list the characteristic features, that is going to be evaluative question. Sometimes you can list it and ask them to prioritize. You can ask them to place an argument against their particular stance. All that questions are possible. And this is actually on level 3 where counterfactuals and extenders can be used. So how would this change have happened? Sometimes you can even go for suppositions there, right? How would things be different if X happened to a greater or lesser degree? So all these are if clauses or suppositions where that can be used, and given a real life situation question, you can ponder them. Once I would like to share an experience. Sometimes when you are asking such questions, the question may not be a single line question. The question itself will run to 5 or 6 lines. It will be like a small paragraph. Sometimes your question papers will be lengthy. I have argued with my own management way back in 2000, where I said that my question papers will be lengthy. If you want them to be skillful in their communication, I have to make them think, and I want to have this kind of comprehension ability in them. It is not that reading comprehension passage alone I'm going to talk about here. I'm also talking about the questions where students are made to made to think. Okay. It is not thinking for not knowing the answer. It is actually thinking for the betterment of it, actually. It is like critically analyzing and answering it. Extenders, how can we apply X to this set of circumstances and how can we predict it? So whenever there is a regression analysis, we make a prediction, right? So here, when you throw open an idea and ask them to predict it, whether this will function or not, even that is called as synthesizers or extenders. So if you are going to have this kind of counterfactuals or contextuals, extenders in your question paper, if you are going to divide your question papers or assessments methodology in this scheme, I think you can expect your question papers to be very challenging. And you are going to create a desire to think and question them if you are going to have this kind of a question paper. Next, I was talking about learning environments where learners are crucial there. You are not going to have passive learners alone these days. You are going to have 8 different type of learners. I have listed it here. You can, I'm not having much slides here. With this, with a couple of slides, I think I'll be ending it. Here, this characteristic type of learners, you can see it starts with active learners, where they do their best by, they learn their best by doing. So that is a kind of, they expect everything to be action oriented. They perform, right? We have talked about learning to do, right? So that kind of behavioral attitude will be in this kind of learners. Next is reflective learners. So they like to process information. They will think and reflect within themselves whenever a concept is taught. They will even come back in the next class and they'll say, can we do it in this, when we applied it this way, I had a doubt. So can we do it this way? So such kind of questions you can expect from this reflective learners. Next comes the sensing learners and intuitive learners. Sensing learners, they learn to facts. They always like to solve problems on their own on established methodologies. They are more prone to touch, right? They would like to work on hands-on projects. Though they have a direct connection with the real world, right? They'll be going for specific examples, and sometimes this hands-on experience will make them understand things in a better way. Okay, so only this concept of language lab came for even acquiring a language, right? Otherwise, when we were all in our graduation and post-graduation, there was no concept of language lab. Then came this language lab where the students of English also have the hands-on experience on language labs. Then intuitive learners, they'll be loving to crack abstract problems. They will prefer to work quickly. They'll be a quick learner and they'll respond in that same way. They will never like memorizing or routine calculations. So they are intuitive learners. Next is the visual and verbal learners. Visual learners is this in this PowerPoint world. I think most of the things have become visual, and even there, I think occasionally we need to prompt it with the visuals, otherwise it is full of content. Okay, so they have these learners have an access more for visual orientation rather than content. Verbal learners prefer written and spoken instructions. Even after a class, one of my learners always say that, ma'am, please give a recap of whatever you have taught. Give me a summary line. So such learners will always expect you to summarize verbatim. Last slide on this types of learners is sequential and global learners. Sequential learners, I have a research scholar who always has a sequential orientation towards her own learning methodology, right? Even if she attends a meeting, she will tell it sequentially from the first to the last, if she summarizes. So some will have that sequential chronology within themselves. It is like setting them with that biological clock rhythm. The last one is global learners, where they will have, they will tend to learn in large leaps. They'll jump and they will have their own aha moments. And it is sometimes they'll be having difficulty in explaining how they reach conclusions when they're having that kind of jump, and they are not detail oriented. Okay, so you can see the types of learners, 8 types of learners I have mentioned. So for all the learners, you are going to create the desire to listen apart from creating the desire to think. Okay, so it is not easy to manage all these 21st century mixed ability group in a class, but still the challenge is lying within the teachers. So you must make them listen, And for that, there is a need to feel appreciated. As I have talked about, need to feel accepted. Similarly, that mental acceptance is also converging towards a concept of appreciation, where a small, unique effort can be recognized in class. Bill Gates is saying that yes, we make mistakes and we come back and learn from those mistakes. So, are we allowing our students to make mistakes? Yes. I'm not talking about the questions asked in question papers. No, I'm not talking about that. When you are given a creative project, it is not that immediately you are going to tell the outcome of it. Okay, allow them to practice. Let them day one, day two, you allow them to work for a week, and then let them come back and tell that we have this particular challenge, we have diverted it this way. Will it work or not work? Then perhaps this discourse which happens between the teacher and the learner, actually there it blossoms into a beautiful collaborative work. Here, Bill Gates again says that I choose a lazy person to do a hard job because a lazy person will find an easy way to do it. Okay, it is like it is a small thing. Like if you have seen physically challenged persons, right? May it be visually challenged or any kind of disabled behavior, they would have a different kind of a mechanism to work for themselves because they have taught for their own community. So here a lazy person is able to find an easy way because he is not able to work in that particular line. So you must, when you are allocating project works to your own students, it is not that the competent is going to be, all the competent are going to be grouped together, right? It can be based on the unique skill they possess or the collaborative nature they have. It can be even sometimes the people who have competence and the other not so competent. It can be a combo effect on that, and how that knowledge dissemination happens between the group or between intergroups. How we are organizing it lies in the hands of the teachers again. Need to feel significant, yes, of course, right? It is not that you are going to make them feel important or not so important just by a glance. No, you do it with a meaning and a purpose. Whenever a project work is given or whenever an activity or a task is given, based on that, you are going to evaluate and tell them. And 21st century learning environment, I think here it creates the learning practices, human support and physical environment that will support the teaching learning of 21st century outcomes. And it is demanded of that 21st century context where the teacher is should enable perhaps on this project-based or applied work. It is not on the tools and technologies alone. The resources will be made available. These days we are doing it in online. So you are not going to always depend on the architecture or the interior design of it, right? The infrastructure plays a vital role. I do accept it. The physical environment plays a vital role. Apart from that, the psychological environment is more important than that. Coming to my conclusion slide. 21st century skills is a group. They are a group of psychosocial and interpersonal skills, right? They are aimed at guiding and preparing learners for meaningful and successful living in a rapidly transforming society. So the students are here expected to possess a daring behavior of how to make a decision and how to think critically. So this daring behavior is developed from a work ethic, possessing an integrity within themselves, making healthier choices, resisting negative pressure, being a resilient person, avoiding risk behaviors, and all that makes a holistic individual of 21st century learner. And if such 21st century skills are integrated into the curriculum, I think you can expect more than just information imparted to the students. So this to have an impact on their behavior, it is not that everything is in your attitude, right? Attitude is something internal and behavior is something external. So this information-based approaches, if it is combined with the attitudinal and interpersonal skills, you can see the blossoming of behavior in their, either in classroom performances or in their workplace career-based outcome. You can see that. And for that, I think there should be a change in focus to develop the individuals a balanced, self-determined behavior of knowing and understanding themselves, attaining personal satisfaction and fulfillment to achieve their goals personally and academically. Okay, and you can see the 21st century curve I was talking on, right? The bell-shaped curve, this semicircle, it starts off with the life and career skills, learning and innovation skills, where you have the 4 C's, information media and technology skills on the right, and the core subjects of 21st century themes. Again, you can see the concentric circles of assessment, curriculum, professional development, and learning environment encompassing it. So if this mechanism, right, this cognitive mechanism works perfectly, I think you can see a 21st century learning environment happening in our India. Okay, thank you. You can pose your questions. I'll see the participants. Shall I stop sharing and come to the forum so that I'll be able to see the participants? I can take up questions.
Yes, ma'am. The first question is from Dr. Shanmuga Sundaram. He asks that why work culture is life work, or he further explain it as how to manage life and work side by side in 21st century.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, I have talked about this work-life balance, right? In 19th century and 20th century, it is work-life balance, and today it is going to be integration. I have used the word integration of life work, which means like you cannot demarcate it or compartmentalize as I am going to do work alone today, or I'm going to allocate time for my personal work. You cannot clearly demarcate it in that way. Because I have been talking about how you are in necessity to pay telephone bills, how you need to attend to your children's parent-teachers meeting, how you need to sometimes for you have booked a ticket, you need to book a ticket for your own conference, right? You cannot say that I'll do it after 7 o'clock. If there is time, you can do it. But I'm saying this integration can happen in this online world, in this internet era of information age, where sometimes if it is there is a Tatkal booking system. When students want to go to conferences, they ask us, ma'am, we'll book the ticket in Tatkal and come back. We'll have to permit them, right? It is a 10-minute exercise. They're going to go out of the class, book the tickets and come back. They have their laptops, right? Only thing is they need to have the Wi-Fi within that particular zone. They'll say that, ma'am, when we are out of the class, the Wi-Fi is good. So we can permit them. I'm not, so that is your personal, don't do it here. It need not be that way. This beautiful integration can happen between work and life. So only we call it as mental model of accommodating your life-oriented, personal-oriented work. When I'm saying personal, it is not too much of a personal. It can be oriented with your academic mechanism. All that can be permitted in your working space. Hope I have answered your question.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is, will you please elaborate more on relationship between self-awareness and self-esteem?
Yes, thank you. Good question, actually. Self-awareness is actually the basic understanding of what skills you possess, right? You cannot be, unless I have told an example, my own case, where I did not know I can teach well, I can explain theories well, right? I was more of an introvert, where I learned to myself. I write my examinations and come out of the examination halls, right? Score good marks. That's all. That was my life until a postgraduate teacher came and told me that you are doing seminars well. You have the teaching skill in you. You can go for teaching. You can opt for that profession. Somebody has instigated me. So such kind of self-awareness can be brought in our own students. So we can assess our students of what capable skills they possess. Amidst by saying, pointing out the errors, you don't do this kind of error, that kind of error, all that is there. Apart from the error, pointing out the error mechanisms, I think you can also say that what unique skills they possess. All learners are not unique. I have talked about the mixed ability groups, starting from visual learners to global learners. Okay, so you have the different set of students in our class. So that kind of self-awareness, if you are going to inculcate, that is on self-awareness. Self-esteem is the next step of self-confidence. Okay, so self-confidence, even there I will not say, for example, if there is going to be a running race, one of my colleagues said that if you can say that, come, you can run, right? You can do it. Come on, do it. So that is called motivation. What is the big deal about it? He said. that is not the kind of confidence you are going to motivate. Okay, so even when they are going to get low marks, at one point of time I said, this is not what I expected from you. I just said this. Okay, somewhere it pricked him. Okay, he said, okay, ma'am, I'll do my best in the next exam. You are capable of it, I said. That is a kind of self-confidence, a small morale you can boost in them. From that step of self-confidence, if he's going to regard his self-confidence, that is going to be self-esteem. You are going to respect yourself for that self-confidence. Last time, madam told, I have worked on this particular error consciously. I have cleared it. Okay, there you can see how the students are able to move from that self-confidence to self-esteem. So the first step is self-awareness. Then you are going to give motivation and boost up their self-confidence. They excel in their self-esteem and they possess their self-respect. Now, if you ask me, if somebody talks ill about my profession, I get wild. Okay, so nobody can touch me on my professional perspective. You can crack jokes on anything else, but not on my profession. So that is the kind of self-esteem you possess. So from the stage of self-awareness, where in my post-graduation somebody has said something instilled in my being, then I had some self-confidence to work on it. Then you possess the self-esteem. You can see the trio there. Hope I have answered your question. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. The next question is, how much you see the role of social media in terms of impact on student learning skills, in spite of ample environment to learn why very few are skillful to get job?
That is actually I'll not say a difficult question, but perhaps a question that need to be posed to recruiters these days, right? That is actually a puzzle. Sometimes they look for communication, sometimes they look for technical skills based on the companies it is occurring, right? We are having a close watch on that. One of my students is working on 21st century skills, right? So she did a survey on how much percentage of them have recruited, and most of the time it is on their I cannot say that totally it is relying on communication skill. It is also on the technical skill. At the same time, it is having equal percentage. So why they are not able to do it? It is not that your social media is actually making you to work in a cocoon, right? So it is they love to read blogs. They do not want to read good stories. They don't want to read good content. When we refer some articles, they say, "Ma'am, what is there to read in this?" So they want everything to be precise. They want everything to be short, succinct. So I think there somewhere they are not having the in-depth knowledge. They are having the superficial knowledge. So when they are not having that grounding, I think recruiters do not have them to be inducted. They don't want them to be inducted. So somewhere this kind of, apart from what I was talking of theoretical implications and practical know-how, that gap is there. Apart from that, I think people in who know Tamil will agree to me, right? There's a word called that. You have the superficial knowledge alone. You don't have the in-depth knowledge. I think for that they are lagging. They want to have a comprehensive content, but not in-depth content over a particular subject. There, I think they are sometimes recruiters complain that they don't know the basics. They don't know the technicality of it. One of my students way back in 2000, right, not now, right, he was not able to explain a concept. The mechanism works like this and works like this, right? He was pointing with a finger instead of saying clockwise and anti-clockwise or counterclockwise. He was not able to get that word immediately. The right diction at the right time, sometimes it affects your communication. So he was not able to do it verbatim properly. All this is it's a menace. Okay? So we will not be able to properly put our fingers and say that this alone affects, communication alone affects. Even if you see this 21st century skills, you have an array of skill sets, starting from problem solving to being an assertive person. It is a curve, right? And it depends on so many factors, again, starting from assessment to questioning methodology. So if everything happens in integration, I think you can get all your students placed. Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is, which 21st century skills can be considered for getting outcome-based education?
This is a very specific question, I believe, right? It is like starting from creating to, starting from remembering to creating. So only I have given that set of questions you need to follow. You must not have creative questions alone in your question paper. Rather than you must not have block questions of remembering alone. You can test, for example, if you want to test your students on a particular formula, you can test it. I'm not saying you must not test in that remembrance at all. If you want to check their remembering capacity, yes, you can do that. For how many marks? That is the big question. So starting from remembering, analyzing, you will have to clearly demarcate and allocate. Okay, it is not one thing. Like I cannot say that you must have all why questions or you must not have all how questions. No, it is not that way. If you are having some comparative questions, if you are having some definitions, if you are having some counterfactuals, if you are having some synthesizers, I think it will be a beautiful combination there. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Participants, if anybody is having any other question, please unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, may I ask myself, Satyendra from Mumbai?
Yeah.
The question is like, yes, as the generation is changing and like, G and Miss Alpha is going to be in the coming times. So when the generation is changing, to making an effective skill set to predict it, how we prepare, like, the next after 5 years, how the skill set will be required. Maybe 21st century is also changing fast. Actually, we have the 3 generation kind of things. And especially also the second question is in disruptive time, how, because it's very difficult to standardize any skill set because you have to go various and trial, and so how to formalize, so in future if such kind of challenges are there and we still able to manage that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. Right, so you have asked 2 questions. I'll start from the second question. So during disruptive or during such situations, how to go ahead with the our works, right? That I think our technical support group is doing wonders. I think, right? Nobody would have believed about WebEx like this, or first when this kind of online environment happened, I do not know whether you have observed, only 4 persons can be seen at a time. Okay, I cannot view so many participants. Then they have made this extension of all the learners at a time. Then now even 200 participants can be registered in WebEx. Okay, and while showing their video also, I think I can see more faces now with my own students. I am handling a capacity of 100 students in my MS Teams. So the technical support is always there. People have started innovating it. So only I am saying we are not going to totally depend on creativity. We are also depending on innovations, and we are making our students develop that kind of innovations by inducing the lateral thinking skills in them. And this 21st century, again, when I'm saying it is changing, this total encompassment of so many skills, if it is there with the values and attitudes, that will suffice for more than 2 or 3 decades. So you need not worried at all, because you can see in US and UK already they have implemented and say they have seen the blossoms of it. Here in India, I have said it is slowly emerging. We are most of the time we are talking about communication skills and soft skills alone. We are not talking about other skill sets that are required. In earlier years, that was there is no necessity of a value education class, right? Everything was part of our system. Now we are into cocoons, right? You said people are into social media, but what on social media? They don't get the holistic picture of everything. They get the information, that's all. How that information has to be organized or how it has to be applied, again, the teacher's role is crucial there. Hope I have answered your question. If there is anything.
Thank you.
Or fine.
Thank you, participants. We can end the session now. Please come back to the afternoon session 10 minutes before the session starts. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, participants. Thank you, Jagan. Thank you, Harishri. Thank you.